Thank you so much, starting really for being here today. I think not just me, but a lot of people in the industry would like to peek into your brain and see what is Jean-Louis thinking. And so for me, it's a real pleasure and honor to have you here in front of me today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So looking a little bit in LinkedIn, I can see a little bit of your bio. So you have a business degree through Schema. You also have an MBA with the HEC à Montréal and have been the CEO for Solmax for the past 7 years. But you've been working in the company since 1997. Uh,
Right.
I could
Yeah.
see from the resume that you had different positions, no, in the company until being the CEO. So my first question for you is, how did you get into geosynthetics?
Right. So by chance, I guess, as I'm not an engineer, if you're an engineer, you have more chance to hand them
Ah,
in a segment like geosynthetics, but I'm not an engineer. Actually had three, I made my studies in three countries. The first one in France. Schema is indeed a business school, which is known in France. Then I had 1 year in Sevilla, where I had 1 year at the university in Sevilla, where I learned the Spanish language at that time. And then later on during my career, I did an MBA because I found out I didn't make that much during my studies. So I needed to do it again in order to be very, very proficient to what I want to do. And then, I mean, it's by chance because at the time, I don't know if you recall, or maybe you don't know, but when I came on the market was in 1992. And at that time in Europe, I mean, the level of unemployment was extremely high for less than 25 years old people, maybe close to 35%, meaning that 35 young guy had no employment over 100. So that was very, very difficult, and I decided just to travel around. So I spent about 5 to 6 years traveling all around and ended up in Montreal after 5 years of traveling as a backpacker at that time. And I met Jack. We started to discuss. He asked me, can he do something to develop the network of Solmax? At that time, we just decided to integrate vertically. So we came from an installation company to a manufacturing company. So they actually built up the first line. It was very difficult for them because they came from the construction business and they had to apply and adapt to the manufacturing environment. So I started to make some contacts in Europe, started to sell the Solmax geomembrane at that time to some installers. I mean, we did pretty well. We found a way to market our membrane in a different way than the others. And then we started to grow with up and down, as usually for the membrane business, you know, you have a lot of up and downs, very cyclical. But we globally were able to grow. And then I took over the sales business globally, so as a VP for sales. And then we had a hard time in 2014, like anyone at that time, because mining and energy was down. Some of the companies didn't go through, as you remember. You know, this is the time where GEC actually went bankrupt at that time. But many others had a very hard time, and we did had a hard time too. But we managed to remain on the green. But at that time, the board of directors decided to replace the CEO, who was somebody very, very oriented internally with processes and lead management and so on, to somebody a bit like me, much more oriented to market development and value creation. Mm-hmm. So I started as a CEO in 2015, and since then, I mean, we've been growing pretty fast and accelerated growth. So that's a little bit, in a nutshell, you know, what happened to me.
Mm-hmm. I've been told that you met Jacques Cote in a hike. Is that true?
Sorry again?
That you met Jacques Cote hiking in the mountain. Is that true?
Well, no, it's not true, but because I really met him in Montreal, but I was coming back from a very long hike because I was based in Chile at that time. And I walked the entire South American continent by foot for 6 months. And then when I headed up, they didn't have much money back. So I said to Jacques, I met Jacques actually because I was coming from Chile and he was opening a branch office in Chile. And I said, maybe you need me, maybe I can do something for you. And he said, no, Chile, I'm good, but I need somebody for Europe. And that's how we started to discuss and so on. And I would say Jacques is very open to, I would say, experiences and people are not necessarily best practice, you know, that comes from different environment and different horizon, which makes a very fun place to work at Solmax, because we do have a lot of people that are very, very different from one to another.
Yeah, that's the diversity in pure essence, right? When something diverse is really thinking different and not just a box where you put different groups of people, but really accepting different ways of thinking as
absolutely. It forces you for collaboration.
Yeah.
It forces you for communication. You need to be open for friction, because it will come. Friction will come. If you have no friction, that something is wrong. That means that everybody is too much aligned. You need alignment, but you need also different point of view so that you really can evolve. Otherwise, you just go on circle. You know, you never move on.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, for people who don't know, you speak English, you speak French, but you also speak very, very good. It's okay. You speak very, very good Spanish, and that's true that you have a mix in between Chilean accent and another like a French. It's a very particular accent, but you speak very, very well.
Yeah, I've got even in French, I don't have the right accent because I have a mix between Quebecois and French, because I've been 23 years in Quebec now. So French people don't really recognize my accent, and on the reverse, you know, the Quebec people, I don't speak like Quebec people, and I guess the same in Spanish, because I made some studies in Sevilla where you do have a very specific accent, and I moved to Chile. So I mean, all this together makes a kind of a weird, but at the end, they all understand me, which is what is important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think languages, they give us like windows to talk to people and to understand really what's going on with that perception.
Definitely, yeah.
So changing a little bit of topic, and this is something that you've been asked several times, but and it's about your acquisitions in the past 5 years. They've been looking from the perspective, and right now I'm more in the objective point, but when I was at the moment when you acquired Solmax acquired GSC, I was working for a competitor of yours. So it was a movement that, as an employee of a company in the sector, affected my perception of the market in first person. At that moment, the acquisition of GSC was as bold as it gets. Like, you couldn't have like the market could have been shaking more with that one. And then with Tenkate, and now with Propex. Are you guys done, or?
No, I think we're not done. I mean, it's a continuous work in progress. And the idea is, you know, if I go to the top idea, of course, you want to grow your own business and you want to be profitable and, you know, be successful. But ultimately, when you think from an industry perspective, what we really want and what really motivates us is to make the geosynthetics a very professional industry. We don't want to slide into commodity, because it is not commodity. It is pretty much complicated, you know, and then even the name of geosynthetics should disappear at one point in time. So yes, the top idea from an industry perspective is to professionalize the geosynthetics. And what I meant by, at one point in time, the geosynthetic world should disappear, because it's too narrow, it's too niche. And actually, I mean, we are much more like a sustainable alternative to conventional materials for the infrastructure. And that's what we're going to try to promote, you know. So we really help infrastructure to be more sustainable. And then as soon as you start to think that way, you see the potential of our markets and our industries. And within this environment, when we talk about alternative, sustainable alternative for building materials in the infrastructure, every company who is very serious about geosynthetics should find a place into that. So what we want is just to be the locomotive of that. And to be a locomotive, you need a certain scale. If you're too small, too fragmented, you cannot move the needle. It's nearly impossible. So when we acquired GSC, we really thought that we would have a decent size to move the needle. To find out that we were not able to move the needle, we weren't big enough. And that comes with, in geosynthetics, you have two different markets. You have the civil infrastructure and you have the environmental infrastructure. Civil infrastructure being roads, tunnels, all this. And the environmental infrastructure is much more like the landfill, the mining, the energy, etc. So with the acquisition of Tenkate, we have connected the two worlds, and we gain in scale again. And then this is where we're going to keep on trying to move this industry to a larger scope, to be very well understood and known by the construction business. So that's what we have in our mind, So, you mentioned that you were working for competitors that I know at our field, that they've been in the business for a very long time, as many others. I can name them, Nawe, Yusker, Scaps, Tensor, all these people have been working very hard in the geosynthetic world, So I think they're really gonna benefit from the fact that we can create some leadership into that industry and make it grow.
So when you talk about the leadership, where do you see the geosynthetics in 5 years or in 10 years or in 15 years? Where do you see is the needle moving?
I think, and I hope, we're going to be much closer to design in a way that we're not going to design because we are manufacturers most of the time, and it's a very different type of business. But however, we need to take by the hand all designers so that they really can design with geosynthetics. That's number one, So I really hope that we're going to be able to increase the capability of all the manufacturers to specify and help on the design in order to replace conventional materials. And we hope that we're going to grasp a decent market share out of the conventional materials, being gravels, steel, concrete, and all these things that are basically not very, very sustainable ultimately. And then when you look at the EAGM, which is the European Association for the geosynthetic manufacturers, you see all their calculation. That's pretty obvious that we really can help to make infrastructure a little bit more sustainable going forward. So more specification, more added value products, more market share into the infrastructure. That's basically what we are aiming for.
So what I'm hearing is that instead of being considered only competitors, different geosynthetic companies, we would consider competition traditional materials and try to work kind of together to gain more market share from the global construction instead of trying to get the market share from each other.
Yep, you're absolutely right. So we are ready to invest in promoting things that we're not going to be the only one to benefit from. So if the industry do benefit, and I think this is the role of a leader going forward, and with our size right now, we're definitely a leader. We are maybe 4 times bigger than anyone else, down the road from the geosynthetic perspective. So I would say, yes, we would like to have everyone who's serious about geosynthetics, to enlarge the top and the piece of the cake against conventional material. But again, maybe one little caveat onto that. There are some companies that are not dedicated to geosynthetics. These are not welcome in our world. The people that just try to sneak into it, and spending, 5% of their revenue into geosynthetics, they are not the one that we want to have into that industry. We really want to have people that are really dedicated and focused on this type of alternative, sustainable material to replace conventional material. So I named a few of them, but there are a lot of other people that are based in other different countries that are not very serious about geosynthetics.
So right now, with all the consolidations that you had, and by the way, when you started this consolidation, did you have like a clear picture and you have pieces of the puzzle and then you found the companies that fit into that pieces, or you saw good opportunities that were aligned with your strategy and jumped into them?
So basically, the 2 first acquisitions being GSC and Tenkate, we already had the idea about 3 years before we actually did it. So it was very well planned. We had a clear vision about what we want to do, and they were transformational because in a way that I was really big acquisition, so you needed to be extremely well prepared for that. Having done that, now we look around us, every type of acquisition that we may do in the future will be more like what we say a token, in a way that's going to be much smaller. The next acquisition will be less planned, less prepared, in a way that what we're going to focus is how can we serve the purpose I just explained by, making the industry much more professional, and then gain market share against the conventional material, So that would be much more smaller acquisition going forward. But to answer your question, the two first one being GC and Tenkara, yes, it was very well prepared. As I said, about 3 years prior to make it happen.
Okay, so when you were in this acquisition frenzy, like the first, the second, the third, that reminded me a lot to the classics of competitive strategy, and I love the classics of all kind of literature. That's my kind of books. So classics competitive strategy is like a nightstand, right? For me, it's beautiful. So you have, on one end, you have theories about advantage through size and volume and knowledge and saving time with that. But then there is another current that it's opposite to that one and talks about the benefits and the competitive through specialization. But for some publications that you've done, and I read during my research for this interview, I could see that you were trying to do both at the same time.
Yes, even if the two acquisitions are extremely different. The first one is definitely falling into what we call consolidation. So you have two key people. We were number 3 at that time in terms of volume. We acquired the number 1, being GAC. And then suddenly, then you have a consolidation that brings a lot of value, right there, because you mix customers, you play with the pricing, you can lead a little bit better the market to where you want to go. So a lot of gain through consolidation. The second one is much more what we call a complementary deal, in the way that we do not share basically no product with Tenkara. They are much more on the textile side, where we are much more on the extrusion plastic side, and we connect civil infrastructure with environmental infrastructure. So this is where we need to build the bridges. This is where we need to go and discover and see, what can we bring to the civil infrastructure, and what can they bring to the environmental infrastructure? And then we are much more into that discovery. And the third one, I would say, the second acquisition is what we call a buy and build. In a way that what is important now is that because we have access to the two sides of the geosynthetics, then we can acquire smaller companies to build on top of this new platform.
I see.
So if you remain only on the liner side, your possibilities to grow and to lead is limited. As soon as you increase your scope to civil infrastructure, then suddenly you have much more possibilities to cross value and gains going forward.
I've seen this that was maybe tried to be done with partnerships, but at the end, each company has their own agenda. So when you're trying to cross sell different products and in 2 or 3 different companies, the aims get dispersed. So it doesn't get to a good point.
Partnership is always kind of a halfway type of strategy, mainly because people are not obliged to move and adapt. As soon as you acquire, you put everybody on the same pool. And then, hey guys, you need to swim together now. There is no way out of the pool, So, and that push a little bit more the boundaries, and that really helps to create a difference, and make it happen.
Yeah. So right now, with your current size, and you've said that it's 4 times bigger than the next one in line. No, that's what you mentioned right now.
We open again. Right now with the size we have much more capabilities to move and then to grow and then to build. So we will always be very, very interesting in any strategic move that can help our purpose and the industry purpose.
So right now, in average, what would you say is the global market share in the world? If you can put or if you want to put a number, it's a.
I would say globally for geosynthetics, for civil and environmental infrastructure, we should be around 15–20%.
Okay, that was actually the number that I had written here, between 15 and 20. So that's good.
So it's not a monopolistic position. A monopolistic position would be much more than 45% or more. So we are a leader, but we leave a lot of space for others to actually grow also and bring value to the industry.
Yes, but my question with this and the next question, this is a question that I have for quite some time, and I try to work myself into the solution. So, there are so many global market research from independent companies that it's their job to do global market research about different industries. And they were forecasting or giving a market size for geosynthetics in 2021. I've seen different studies, right? I've seen the ones that said, for putting numbers, one it says 10 billion, other one says 8 billion, other one says 3.5 billion. The one that I've seen in Solmax website, or a kind of a publication that was linked to you, for what I could see, they said 2021, 10 billion, and 2026, like 13.6 billion, something like that. So if you're in between the 15 or 20%, and this market is 10 billion, is your billing around 2 billion right now, or I'm missing something?
Well, from a market share perspective, I think it all depends on the angle we take the look into it. I would say if we take a very narrow perception and look into geosynthetics, I think we are much closer to $6 billion globally. As soon as you get a little bit further into again, conventional materials replacement, most probably then you can go sky is the limit, because you can basically replace a lot of conventional materials, and this is a huge market. So that starts at 6 million, and then you can go, if you want to sell your company, you can go wherever you want. You can say whatever you want, depending on what is your perspective. So that and then yes, we are over $1 billion revenue today.
Okay, thank you. No, it helps a lot to have such a global perspective, because at this point there's few people that can answer that with data. There's just so many.
And the issue with these market studies is that first, they are not very, very professional, because they don't have access to all the details, and our industry is extremely private, very difficult to capture the value of each of the companies. I mean, every time we do some analysis, and we're always surprised by the revenue of that small company is much more than what we thought, and vice versa. So they are not very professional, and that the issue of that is, if some of the market share say, well, this is a market of 15 or 20 or $100 billion, whatever, that brings people to think that they can invest and gain market share easily, which is not the case, because this market has to be built. If we want to replace conventional materials, we are just at the very, very beginning of the journey. So I would say a great deal has been done for the first 20 to 30 years, but now we need to accelerate this transition against traditional material, and that's just the very, very beginning.
Okay, so what is a new word that you would replace geosynthetics? Alternative materials?
Well, right now in our mission, we already take out the word geosynthetics. I think geosynthetics also brings a wrong image of the product, because you have the synthetic into it, and people doesn't like the synthetic kind of stuff today from a sustainable point of view. So in our mission, we put alternative sustainable construction material against conventional material. So we don't have a clear mention, but what we want is to make sure that when we start to promote, and all the companies are going to start and promote this product, being drainage and reinforcement and then liner, etc., start to position themselves against the traditional material. That's the key element. So whatever they're going to choose as a name, it's just to mention that we are a construction materials for infrastructure. And we should gain in market share into that business.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit ironic, and unfortunately, there's no other option at this point, but that these sustainable materials and alternative materials are made with raw materials that are not the healthiest for our planet in the other point. No?
Absolutely, and that's the main issue. But there is a lot of things that are very interesting, and when we dive into that, you're absolutely right that we use fossil fuels in order to create polypropylene or polyethylene or polyester, which are the main component of our product. Having said that, you know, polyethylene is a fantastic product, a fantastic transformation to capture carbon, because the polyethylene is made out of carbon and hydrogen, and the carbon, once is plugged into the plastic, will never get out. So here is the key element that's going to be very hard to explain and promote, is that the long-lasting plastics are something that will help the planet. We shouldn't be, confused about that. If you use plastic that then after you dropped the day of tomorrow and you find this same plastic in the ocean, this is very bad. So I invite everyone to go on to the Bill Gates book, and you have 2 pages about plastic in that book that actually say that plastic could be a good solution to solve a lot of issues that we have on the planet, as far as we don't use it just one time and then let go and not able to recycle. Right now, the capability for recycling are much smaller than the production of plastics. That's why we found all this plastic on the ocean. But again, when you produce an engineering plastic like a membrane, and then you contain contaminants for 1,000 years, I mean, you actually do good for the planet. So all the value are in the details, you know, and devil is in the details. So we need to be careful not to go cliche and say whatever things that are not appropriate going forward, you know. And I'm extremely connected with sustainability myself. I put a very strong criticism about what is going on right now with all the investment funds and companies, that we're always on the edge with greenwashing. And that's very, very dangerous. So we need to be very, very conscious about what can we do, which is really good, and what shouldn't we do, which is not that good. So you're absolutely right, Tamara, but at one point in time, if we do it right, plastic could be something that could help going forward, depending how we do it.
That's a very interesting point of thinking. And so far there's no other better option to have the same long-lasting results. So it's
absolutely right. And then when we look at all these trucks moving gravels, moving sands, I mean, that's a lot of carbon emissions, you know, whether you move a 1 millimeter drainage systems or 1.5 millimeter membrane or whatsoever. I mean, this is where the gain is huge. And by the way, we will need to build infrastructure, because the planet, I mean, very, very soon we will reach 14 billion inhabitants on the planet in a matter of maybe 15 years. So you need all these people to be mobile all around the planet. So how do we do that without fully destroying the planet, you know? So how can we play a role into that?
So I've seen that you have your CSR, which is corporate social responsibility, reporting directly to the CEO. Can you explain the reason of this and how other companies could benefit from the replication of this movement in geosynthetics, out of geosynthetics?
Right. So, I mean, that's a very complex question and situation for the companies right now. CSR, ESG, sustainability. I mean, this is more than fashionable right now. I would say there are, in my mind, there are 3 levels for that. The first level is that if you want to get financing in the future, you need to have your CSR reporting as much as you need to have a financial reporting. If you are not, if you don't know your baseline, if you don't know your consumption of energy and how much carbon emission you do from your plant, from a scope 1, scope 2 perspective, you're going to have a hard time more and more to get financing. And then we found that because we went through 2 financing wrong through the acquisitions, and ESG or CSR, wherever you call it, it's becoming extremely important for investment funds and for bankers. So you need to work on that. That's compliance. That's the first level. But it doesn't really mean that you do something good for the planet. You just make a baseline and you try to do a little bit better on your baseline. But you see, it's much more, the investment fund, for instance, they look at it as a risk perspective. What, investment fund, what they look at is profitability and risk. So there is a risk of not doing it if you don't know how much you emit in terms of carbon. So you need to show that you know, and then you do something. The second level is what can you do from a company perspective to do it better? That's where we stand at Solmax, and that's why I want to be connected on that. It depends on how you deal with energy, how you deal with people. There's a lot of things that you can do, and we have at least four or five programs that are currently, in flight at Solmax in order to reduce our carbon emission. And then you need to do something good, and then employees are looking forward to it also. And the third level, which is one level that I believe in, and we have a lot of polemic around that, is that no matter what we do, fundamentally, we are not helping the planet. Yeah. Because ultimately, we are getting more and more people on that planet, and the only way to reduce our impact on the planet is to reduce our growth and stop investing. But nobody is ready for that today. So we don't play into that arena, but that's what is a reality, So whatever you do to reduce your footprint, it's still not enough to really save the planet on the long-term perspective. That's what I believe.
Yeah, but these three levels, the first one is compliance, is just pure compliance. And I also think that kind of compliance is interesting for investing, because when a company is able to take care of that kind of priorities, is because the other one have been fulfilled already. So they kind of have done the legwork on the today and the tomorrow, and ESG is kind of the after tomorrow, no? So that's good sign that the company is healthy. But there's also, and on that terms, there's been in geosynthetics or in alternative materials, we are already helping certain SDGs also, right? Certain social development goals because of where we are. But then the companies can also set different goals besides the environmental ones, or besides the one that naturally perform through their living existence. And I was wondering, besides the environmental and sustainable goals that you might have through Solmax, through your alternative materials building, what kind of initiatives do you have besides the natural ones? What kind of programs, if you have them in place, or if you want to plan in the future, that can lead also to other companies to implement this into their structure? So we'll go towards that direction.
Right. So if we come back to ESG, you have E for environment. That's what we focus on right now. And then we have a specific department for that. We have, as I said, 4 programs around that. One program is really oriented to Scope 1, Scope 2, so what you can actually control in your plant in terms of consumption, energy consumption, and carbon emission. And then we have a team working on the Scope 3, which is a cradle to grave evaluation of what you do. And this is where we end up with environmental product declaration, life cycle assessments, and then this is where we need to compare with conventional material, and every time we can, to reduce the impact of what we do when we build an infrastructure. Then you have the S and the G. The S, social, G, governance. We decided to embed, to make it embedded into our HR department and finance department. So we don't have a specific department for that. It's all about inclusion, diversity, communities, and so on. So I believe that the progress we're going to make to that will be slower than from the environment perspective. First, because we're very much asset-driven type business. We don't have a lot of workforce to compare with other type of businesses. For sure, we will make sure that we do the things properly. For sure, we're going to look into how we deal with our employees into the company. So all these connect with HR from a global HR perspective. And governance, we already very well organized. We have a board of directors that are fully independent and then can actually challenge us on our choice and our strategies. So that's how we are organized. And then, yeah, from an HR perspective, we do have a lot of projects. Then we're gonna have to prioritize a little bit, you know. Right now, I have to say that we've been extremely busy because of the acquisitions. And when we make an acquisition, I mean, the key element, the most difficult one, is the humans, the employees, you know, because you bring all these people together, and that creates a lot of and a tremendous, you know, movement and change management whatsoever. So we've been very busy into that, but now we're getting out of it. And this is where we're going to start to think about things that are a bit more future oriented.
Mm-hmm. So I have two questions about it. I've seen that you have parallelly signed an agreement with a company. It's called Nano Explore, and they are specialized in graphene solutions.
Yeah.
What the first thing I hear about graphene and is that it's a monodimensional element, that it can be put in a situation where it's at the same instead of being, no, it's bidimensional element, right? That you can put it in a line, but it's so small that doesn't need to have the height, let's say. Molecularly, I'm sure you can explain that better, but how can that be integrated into the geosynthetics, and how is this moving forward?
I won't go too much in details. It's a work in progress right now. The only thing I could say that graphene is better than other products that we use currently when we manufacture our geosynthetics from a sustainability standpoint. So from a sustainability standpoint, you know, to analyze how can we use the graphene in our manufacturing is a good thing. You know, instead of polyethylene or black carbon or master batch, graphene can help in terms of environmental product declaration going forward. And then we need to explore, graphene is a very new chemical, I would say. There's a lot of things that we can do with graphene, but we don't know much about what we can do with it. So if you don't play with it, you will never know. So that's what we call innovation. Mm-hmm. So the idea is to play with graphene, and then we wanted to have a stabilized agreement with one of the best company in the world that actually produce graphene. Mm-hmm. We wanted it to be protected also on everything that we will discover going down the road with the graphene. But I think we need to explore the capabilities that graphene can bring to our material, you know. And graphene is already very present in pipes, in many other manufacturing products. So I mean, the idea is just to go and discover and work with it.
Yeah, well, it's for sure innovative. I mean, it has been around, at least in the public news, for me that I'm not specialized on any kind of elements. I've been here about 5-6 years at least.
Yeah. But for me, it's new. 5, 6, 10 years is still
very
in
terms of materials. Yeah. And in terms of actually using it, I was just very excited about that news. It's new. And linking that to, okay, so you as a company, Solmax as a company is betting for these innovations, and I'm sure this is just one example of the many things that you have, right? Because you need to have many tricks under the hats and to explore them, and some of them will work, some of them won't work, and that's okay. But how do you cohabitate with a certain kind of customers that they just ask for the bare minimum, that they demand nominals materials, that they just want to comply and being there, and they're actually a big chunk of the consumption for the entire geosynthetics, and they're actually paying the bills of the companies? How do you cohabitate the two realities, one trying to push forward to the top of the art, and the other one trying just to survive and, you know, being bare minimum? How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, among all the products that falls into the geosynthetic family, you have two that are still very highly commoditized, which is the geomembrane and the non-woven geotextile, and then that for very specific applications. So, I mean, we cannot ignore it today. However, there are ways over the time to actually decommoditize to some extent this approach. And then it requires that you need to find ways to bring value through the product to some very specific application. You need to find ways to specify and make the engineers understand that there are other functionality that we can bring through these products going forward. And then slowly but surely, then you start to grasp market share over the commodity market share that will fall under the people that are not very necessarily very focused on geosynthetics, because I'm pretty sure that every company that are highly focused on geosynthetics, they will try to create some additional value for them and for the industry. And then I don't say it's easy, but it's a continuous thing that we need to elaborate in our budget year after year. And then every time we gain 1 or 2% over commodity, it's a victory.
Yeah, I like that, gaining over commodity. Yeah.
Yeah, and it will take time and it will take effort, you know, and that's why I say, and you mentioned very well, we are not looking, the other companies are very focused on just things. For us, it's not a direct competition. It is competition, but this is not the competition we focus on. We really focus on traditional materials and low-end manufacturers, you know, the people that actually destroy the value and the perception, the value perception of our own industry.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I really liked our conversation. I think the last question I have for you it's how do you transmit your company core values to different cultures and employees' point of view when the word work-family balance or inclusiveness or sustainability, it means so many different things in their own cultures and to their own experiences. How do you set your core company values transversally in all your people?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'll try to explain a few things. First, I would say humans are not so different between a region and another region. And we found that through a very interesting, when we tried to hire, the first time we were in Malaysia, I'm talking about maybe, that's about 15 years ago, we tried to adapt the people we were trying to recruit. In our mind was, okay, Asian people would be very different. So we need to be careful about what we do and what we ask and what we choose. And we found out that we made a lot of bad choices because ultimately what you want is the same that what you want in America or in Europe. You want people that are honest, that are committed, and you know, you have your own set of values and it works wherever you are. Having said that, there are a lot of small specialties in each region. And then I would say in each country, and sometimes in each small part of the country. And then you can only solve all this. The values of the company will be global. That will give the main guideline when you want to recruit, when you want the pressure to make a decision, or when you need to align. That is where you go, okay, what is the guideline? Oh, you know, let's say we want somebody who is collaborative. This guy is very smart, but for sure it's not collaborative. I cannot hire the guy. You know, this is the kind of decisions that are very, very important. But as you go and you try to make everybody work together, the only way to make it happen is communication. There is no magic. There is no way to, oh, if you follow that rules and it's going to work. It doesn't exist. You know, that would be too easy, way too easy. So you need to listen. You need to understand why. You need to see what are the in-depth value of that region and how people work together. And then you find and you navigate through that, you know, and then it's a permanent work that you have to do day after day. And what you absolutely need to do is to bring that perspective of how to navigate through the different specialty of all the cultures to your management level. The manager should be able to handle communication in a very efficient way. And that has to be part of your training into the company. And that's extremely important indeed. Because if you solve this, then you solve a lot of small issues that takes a lot of time. And when you take a lot of time for small issues, you have no time to think about big issues, which are the one that you should focus on. So again, it's easy to say, very difficult to do, you know, but that's my only advice on this specific question.
It's a good advice. At the end, I take I like that the human being is we are not that different, right? We all want the same things.
Yeah.
We want to be respected. We want to feel appreciated and loved in our workplaces. We want to have a nice ambient. We want to be successful. We want to do well for our company and feel our company does well for us. But we want that in general we win. And I think that's a common ground. We want to be with our families and we work for them. Yeah, but it's true that cultural particularities are important, and that's an art, that's a craft as well.
That's right. Yeah, that's underlying issues.
That's subtle, so subtle. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. It was a real pleasure talking to you. I think I've learned about Solmax today and during my investigation to this podcast. What I personally like is the aim for sustainability and the aim for going towards something else than the product. We cannot sell products to people. We need to sell ideas to people and tell them where we want to go. And the products are just the tools that we use to implement that ideas. The products is the bodies of the souls. But we have to start in the soul of the companies, and the bodies is just the materialization. So I like that.
Absolutely right. And if I can make a conclusion to everyone or every company that is working in that field right now, you know, every time I see on the news that a specific company has devised a different solution, and then they win some market share because of that solution, I always say, oh, that's interesting. And basically that is good. That's what we want. We want to be challenged on these kind of things more than on the price or other type of approach that basically doesn't bring any value on the very long term. So I really, support any competitors that can bring value to the industry through solutions, through new way of new path to market, or whatever, you know. So connected to some kind of innovation going forward, you know. And I'm always really welcoming this type of thing into the industry today. Healthy competition. This is what we used to say.
Healthy and smart competition.
Yeah.
Very important. we always have to play the matches with people that is the same level or a little better than us, so we can keep improving. Otherwise, the sport is boring.
Absolutely right. And I hope they're going to look at us being the leader. You know, we send messages, we follow some track, and hopefully this is the right one. And then people can help and build all around that.
Mm-hmm. How can they find you in LinkedIn? You have your profile, open your application opens, they can follow your ideas, Solmax ideas in LinkedIn. What other platforms are you in?
That's a good question. I'm not super marketing oriented, to be honest, but yeah, we do have LinkedIn or our website, but I don't think we go much further than that, you know. And myself, I wouldn't say that I'm extremely active on LinkedIn, to be honest, but maybe I should, you know. So that's a good question I'm going to ask to our marketing manager. Do I need to be a little bit more active on LinkedIn? They will let me know.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciated your time.
Good. Thank you very much, Tamara. Have a good day, and hopefully we see each other around around the world.
Yeah. Like always.
Right. Bye-bye. Thank you.